Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for stopping by today. Today I have a couple of cards to show you. I wanted to kind of show you how you could take one birthday card that's kind of maybe more feminine in nature and change one thing and kind of make it into a more masculine birthday card. So I thought it would be fun for a background to use this Hero Arts calendar background. I actually think it's called the calendar background stamp. Imagine that. So I have the stamp face up on my work surface. I've inked it up with some Altenew Moonrock dye ink, and then I'm applying my Nina Solar White cardstock onto there. And then I've just covered it with a piece of scratch paper that was my reserved for the Wiley family sign that I had to save places for our kids' graduation. So those things are reusable. And I just pressed the ink all over that, keeping one hand in place. And then I'm taking it over to my trimmer and I'm just going to trim this down a bit. Now, I kind of trimmed it out into some funky measurements. So I'm going to have to fix that with my card base later on, but that's okay. I wanted it to kind of trim along those lines that I trimmed it on. So there is a method to my madness, although it doesn't always seem that way. So I'm going to do a little ink blending. I wanted to create a ink blended area that in the shape of a heart. So I've used a die. This is an old Lifestyle Crafts nesting heart die. Now I couldn't find these online to link to, but I did find something similar from Lawn Fawn. So you'll find that in the description below. And I've used some masking paper to just cut out that heart. And in order to get the heart exactly where I wanted it on my card front, I placed the actual heart down onto the card front, and then I placed the negative area around it and then removed the heart. So now that I have that in the perfect position, I can ink blend onto this cardstock, and I'm using the W+9 Flamingo dye ink. And I just used my ink blending tool to apply that, and I've kind of kept it darker on that right-hand side. So once I had those two colors kind of going on, that flamingo and the moon rock, I wanted to pick a couple of other colors to go with it. So I went over to my ink swatches and I picked out the mint julep ink from Hero Arts as well as the Tide Pool ink. And so I'm going to be bringing those in as my accent colors. I am now going to use the Lawn Fawn Big Scripty Words stamp set and coordinating die set for my sentiment on this card. So I'm starting out with that birthday sentiment, and I've used my Mini Misty to stamp it onto a scrap piece of Nina Solar White cardstock. I've used the mint julep ink from Hero Arts for that. I've stamped it onto that cardstock, and now I'm taking the coordinating die and I'm placing that over. I'm holding it in place with a little micro pour tape as I run it through my die cut machine. And I have to tell you guys, these dies and stamps cut out perfectly. I love this Big Scripty Words stamp and die set. It's amazing. So now that I have that birthday sentiment on there, I need to finish it off. And so I'm using the Clark's ABC stamp set. This is also from Lawn Fawn, and I'm spelling out happy. Now I've positioned it onto my Mini Misty, and then I just stamped it in a little bit of that Moonrock ink just to make sure that I have my positioning where I want it. And then if I don't have it quite perfectly, I can adjust it before I do my final stamping. So I've added my vellum to my Mini Misty. I'm going to be heat embossing this onto the vellum. So I've prepped the cards or the vellum with a little bit of EK Success powder tool. I inked up my stamp in the Versamark ink, and then I stamped it onto the vellum, applied some superfine detail white embossing powder, and then I went ahead and heat set that with my heat tool. Now I wanted to trim this down, but it's kind of a slippery little devil there. So I used the micro pour tape again to hold it onto my trimmer as I made those little adjustments onto that, I don't know, sentiment strip there. Sometimes when these pieces are really narrow and you can't really push them up really good against the top of the trimmer, it's hard to trim them out. So I went ahead and just used a piece of micro pour tape, trimmed it down, and that worked perfectly. So now it's time to layer up my sentiment here. I have cut this birthday sentiment, which you can see. You can use it on its own. You don't need it with the stamp set. And that's one of the reasons that I love this stamp and die combo is you can use the dies by themselves, or you can use them with the stamped greetings, and they work perfectly. So I've cut that out of some gold glitter cardstock. I ran the stamped piece through my Xyron sticker maker because, I don't know, I was in a different kind of mood and I just thought I'd bring out my sticker maker there. And then I went ahead and applied that stamped piece onto that gold glitter piece. Now you also see I cut out a piece of fun foam there. I'm going to layer that behind to add some dimension. And now I am stamping this diagonal lines background stamp onto a card front here. This is an A2 size card front. I stamped that in the Hero Arts Mint Julep ink once again, and that's just going to give me a little bit of pattern on my card base. Now at this point, I had stamped it onto a card front, but in the end I go back and I stamp an entire card base with that as well. So now I thought this heart theme kind of needed a little bit of reinforcement. So I'm taking the Acts of Kindness stamp set. This is from Hero Arts. And I'm grabbing those little hearts out of there and I'm inking those up in the Tide Pool ink, which was my fourth color in that color combination. And I'm stamping them onto this card front that I've created here. And I'm just kind of scattering them throughout. Now, I did ink these up and stamp them off on a piece of scratch paper first because I had never used them before. And so if you're going to use a stamp for the first time, you may want to kind of season it a little bit by stamping it onto a piece of scratch paper first. So now I am going to add a little bit of the Zig two-way glue pin to the top part of this birthday sentiment. I'm going to add it on to that vellum strip. And then I also added a little bit of Tombow Mono multi-glue to the front part of that fun foam piece that's cut out. And I'm doing things the hard way because I like to do things the hard way here. But you get to learn from my weirdness here. My mom always called me Amelia Bedelia because she said I went about things all like the most difficult way possible. Now, in my head, I always think that I'm doing it the easiest way, but when I go back and I look at it, I'm like, oh, there's totally an easier way to do that. But in my head at the time, it all seems right. So I added that fun foam piece onto the back of my sentiment there. And now I'm creating a few little strips of paper to hang down from that vellum strip. Now, I wanted to bring the Tide Pool color in once again, but I didn't have any cardstock that color. So I'm just taking my ink pad directly to a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock and I'm just smearing it all over. Now it looks a little splotchy at first, but when it dries a little bit smoother and you can see it's already starting to smooth out there as it dries. And I'm just going to cut the ends of these into different little banner ends and angles and that sort of thing. And you can see that I used some of that striped card front there too to create my third little banner or flag shape that's going to go underneath this sentiment strip. So I ended up trimming down that card front that I created earlier to create that little banner piece there. And I'm going to end up stamping a card base in the end. Yes, card base. So now I've added a little bit of ATG adhesive to the back part of that vellum. I've kind of wrapped it around the card front and now I'm adding some liquid glue to the back of my sentiment there and I'm going to press it down onto my card front. Now here's where you can see I'm actually going to stamp my card base. So I have an A2 size card base. It's cut, the cardstock is cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and then it's folded at 5 1/2. And I use my scoreboard to score this card base first and then fold it. It gives me a nice good crease because on this 110-pound cardstock, if you try to fold it without first scoring it, you're going to end up with crackage. We don't like crackage. On cards, on older adult males who don't know how to pull up their pants. We just don't like crackage, right, y'all? So I've added some fun foam behind the card front. I've added a little strip of some gold glitter cardstock along that left-hand side of the card front. And now I'm adding my grouping of little banners here, and I've just tucked them kind of up underneath that vellum piece. And to finish that little grouping off, I thought it needed a little bow. So I am using the Strawberry Twine from Avery Elle. Don't get me started on singing that song again, y'all, because, you know, every time I use the Strawberry Twine, it's like, nope, you know what? I'm not even going to go there again. If you want to know about what that's all about, I will link the video where I sang it for you before. So now that I have that card front all put together, my card proportions were a little bit funky. So I just trimmed a little bit off the bottom of the card base that I created. I'm going to round the bottom right-hand corners of the card front and the card base with my EK Success 3/8" corner chomper. And then I'm going to apply that card front onto the card base. And you know I couldn't have this fun little birthday card without a little bit of sparkle. And so I'm adding some Pretty Pink Posh sparkling clear sequins, and I am just using a little bit of the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish to finish that off. Now, this says month of, and I really thought it needed something up there. So I found this little like "You Are Awesome" stamp in this Hero Arts Thanks stamp and cut set here. So I'm just inking up the awesome part in that flamingo ink and then stamping it on there. Isn't that cool? Month of Awesome. I thought that was a fun way to create a birthday card. And I think that background stamp, by the way, is originally made for like planners, but you know, I'm going to use it on a card because that's what I want to do. Now, here's where I want to show you to take the same exact color combination. I took out the flamingo ink. I added the Altenew Desert Night ink instead, and this is what I came up with. I only changed one color. I changed the gold to silver, and I changed the flamingo ink to navy ink. And then I changed that shape there to a pinking circle. Now, once again, this was an old Lifestyle Crafts nesting die set, but I did find something similar to link to, so that's in the description below. And you can see how I created a very fun and masculine card. I also replaced the sequins with some fun shaped enamel dots like stars and triangles and that sort of thing. So there you have it, one card, kind of two ways. We have the feminine version and the more masculine version. As always, I will have links to the products used in this project over at my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com, and I will have links to the featured products in the description at YouTube. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.